Okay, let's unpack this. When you hear the names Tom and Dick Smothers, you immediately think folk music, the guitar, the yo-yo maybe,
Oh,
and that classic line, right? Mom always liked you best.
exactly. The gentle sibling rivalry. And of course, the big battles with the TV censors back in the late 60s. They really did change the game in terms of what you could say, what you could show on network television.
But here's the thing that's always fascinated me. What if that whole stage act, that constant bickering, wasn't, wasn't just an act? What if that disagreement, that tension we saw, was actually real? And maybe even the engine driving their entire career for decades.
That's the core of it, isn't it? The comedy, the bickering, the way Tom would gently provoke Dick.
Mm,
It seems it was rooted in two genuinely, fundamentally different guys, philosophically different even.
right. So our mission today in this deep dive is to really dig into that paradox. We've got sources covering, their entire lives and careers. Richard Remick Smothers, that's Dick, and Thomas Bolin Smothers III, Tom.
We'll look at their beginnings, obviously, but also the stuff they did outside the comedy duo, which was surprisingly different for each of them. And, crucially, how this deep, genuine split between them, this philosophical divide, somehow made their partnership stronger, not weaker.
So this is for you, the listener, to kind of grapple with this puzzle. How does a duo built on real constant disagreement? You've got this outspoken, almost radical activist on one side, Tom, and then on the other, a more conservative, really pragmatic guy,
Dick.
Dick. How do they sustain that partnership? Especially when one becomes this political symbol and the other, he becomes a serious actor, even gets into endurance auto racing. It's a wild study in compatibility through conflict.
It really is. And to get there, we need to set the stage, understand where they came from. Tom, the older one, born February 2nd, 1937. Dick, November 20th, 1938. Both born in New York City, interestingly enough.
Oh, I didn't realize they were East Coast born. I always associate them with California.
They got there, but yeah, born in New York. Their middle name, Remick, that comes from their mother Mary's maiden name. But the really defining event, the tragedy of their early childhood, was losing their father.
Right. Major Thomas B. Smothers, Army officer.
He died as a prisoner of war. Held by the Japanese in the Philippines, died in April 1945. That kind of shared, profound loss, happening so early in their lives, it must have forged a powerful bond, a shared history, even before their personalities started diverging so much later.
And that history eventually led them west. So despite being born in New York, they really grew up in Southern California, places like Altadena, Tujunga, Redondo Beach.
Right. They both went to Verdugo Hills High School, then graduated from Redondo Union High, and eventually both ended up at San Jose State University, or San Jose State College, as it was called back then.
Okay, and this is where, as you said, the differences start to become really visible, even before the comedy. You picture them as these gentle folk singers, but they're actually serious athletes.
Very serious and competitive. Dick, the younger brother, the pragmatist to be, he was focused, a distance runner on the track team. And get this, he was coached by Lloyd Bud Winter, a pretty legendary Olympic coach.
Wow. Distance running, that takes discipline, right? Pacing, consistency, predictable effort.
Exactly. Very Dick Smothers, in retrospect. And Tom.
Tom was the gymnast. Total opposite, almost. Gymnastics requires flair, doesn't it? Acrobatics, artistry, a certain element of risk.
Absolutely. And he was good. He actually tied for first place on the parallel bars at the 1958 State College Gymnastics Championships. He also pole vaulted.
So right there, before they even strum a guitar on stage together, you've got this perfect duality, the steady, measured runner Dick, and the high-flying, maybe slightly unpredictable artist gymnast Tom. It's almost like a blueprint for their stage personas, wasn't it?
It really feels like foreshadowing, yeah. But the path to the stage, that started with music even earlier. Back in high school, they actually sang together in the school's magical choir.
Get out. Magical choir. What parts?
Dick was the tenor, hitting the higher harmonies. And Tom was the bass, providing that foundation.
Huh. Okay, so music was there early, but the folk thing, that came later.
Yeah, that was the folk boom. They were really inspired, apparently, by the huge success of Tom Dooley by the Kingston Trio. That song just exploded, launched the whole craze. So initially, their goal was just be folk musicians. Pure and simple.
Makes sense. And they started playing gigs.
Yep. After Dick transferred to San Jose State in '57, they started performing together at local San Jose nightclubs, mostly for college crowds, playing the folk songs.
Okay, so how did the comedy, the bickering creep in?
This is where it gets interesting. The music was, fine, standard folk stuff. But the introductions to the songs, Tom started improvising those, just rambling, riffing, doing all the talking between numbers.
Ah, classic Tom.
Right. And Dick, being Dick the practical one, he saw potential for structure. He suggested, hey, that funny stuff you improvised, let's repeat it. Let's make it part of the act.
Okay, so structure meets improvisation, but how did it become the argument?
Well, according to Tom's own recollections later, once he started trying to repeat the banter as Dick suggested, Dick's natural straight man instinct just took over immediately. The dynamic shifted. Dick started correcting him.
Just correcting facts, or?
It apparently went pretty quickly from Dick just saying, that's wrong, to the line that became their trademark, that's wrong, you're stupid.
Wow, so that famous dynamic, the core of their comedy, it wasn't really scripted initially. It just emerged from Dick's genuine need to correct Tom's rambling, combined with Tom's willingness to, well, play the fool.
Seems like it. That improvised argument, fueled by Dick's desire for order and Tom's creative tangents, became the central conflict, and ultimately the absolute winning formula for their whole career.
And it worked pretty fast.
Almost instantly. January 1959, they get spotted by, of all things, a detective manager.
Sounds like a movie.
Right. Leads to an audition at the Purple Onion in San Francisco, a really famous folk club back then.
Yeah.
They impressed enough that they left San Jose State the very next month. Their initial 2-week contract got extended to 16 weeks.
16 weeks. So that was it. They were full-time pros.
Never looked back. Full-time entertainers from basically February 59 onwards.
And they started getting TV exposure pretty quickly, too.
Yeah, they got their feet wet. Tom was actually a regular on the Steve Allen Show in 1961, which was huge exposure back then. Steve Allen was a giant.
Definitely. And eventually that led to them getting their own show on CBS.
It did. But, and this is crucial, it wasn't the show everyone remembers. It wasn't the Comedy Hour. Before that groundbreaking counterculture variety show, there was something else entirely. It's something almost nobody remembers.
Ah, you're talking about the Smothers Brothers Show, the sitcom.
Exactly, the fantasy sitcom. Ran just one season, 32 episodes, from September 65 to April 66, Friday nights on CBS. It's this really bizarre footnote in their career and in TV history, frankly.
And it had a strange pedigree, too, right? Aaron Spelling created it.
Aaron Spelling.
Or
before Charlie's Angels, before Dynasty. And here's another bit of trivia for you. Sources say it was the very last CBS sitcom filmed entirely in black and white. The network went full color in prime time right after.
Wow. Okay, but the premise. Let's get into the premise, because it sounds out there.
Oh, it's completely surreal. You need to savor the weirdness. Dick Smothers played himself, basically, Richard, a young, rising executive at a publishing house called Pandora Publications. You know, the grounded, sensible, career-focused brother.
Okay, makes sense. Very Dick. And Tom, what was Tom doing?
Tom Smothers played Tommy, his brother, who had been lost at sea 2 years earlier, only to return to Earth as an apprentice angel.
All right, wait, an apprentice angel?
Yes, an apprentice angel, trying to do good deeds on Earth so he could earn his wings. He got his orders from his boss, who was unseen and unheard, just a voice named Ralph.
Ralph the angel boss. This is peak 60s sitcom weirdness.
Totally. And naturally, Tom's attempts to help people using his, clumsy, trainee-level heavenly powers always went sideways. Which, of course, forced Dick, the straight man brother on Earth, to constantly clean up the messes.
So even in this bizarre fantasy setup, they locked right back into their established stage dynamic.
Perfectly mirrored it. Pragmatic brother, Dick, dealing with the chaos caused by the idealistic, boundary-pushing, slightly inept brother, Tom, except here Tom's literally got heavenly incompetence.
The episode titles alone sound wild. You mentioned there's something about a sailor that must be the pilot where he comes back.
That's the one. Then you had stuff like You're Only Old Once, where Tom magically gets aged 70 years to, I guess, relate better to nursing home residents.
Or
Never Trust a Naked Rembrandt, where Angel Tom tries to reform a burglar. It's just,
But the brothers themselves, they weren't happy with this, right? Especially Tom.
Miserable. Particularly Tom. And that misery, that experience, ironically became the catalyst for the revolutionary TV they did next. Tom was really critical of the show. He felt the whole rigid sitcom format just completely stifle what they actually did well. The music, the improvisation, the banter.
They were basically just after saying lines in this weird angel plot.
Pretty much. And this brings up that crucial point about creative control. They were stars, sure, but they had no power on this show. Tom fought constantly with the executives at 4-Star Television over the scripts, over the direction.
And that had real consequences for him personally.
Oh, yeah. The sources are pretty clear. The stress of that fight, the frustration of not being able to shape their own show, it was so intense that Tom developed an ulcer. and it apparently contributed significantly to his marriage ending around the time the season wrapped up.
Wow. Just from fighting over an Angel sitcom.
It speaks volumes about how much the creative aspect mattered to him, even then.
Yeah.
And the artistic restrictions were galling. They were told, "You're actors now, not folk singers." They hardly ever played their instruments on the show.
Seriously, the Smothers Brothers without the guitar and bass?
Barely featured. And they didn't even sing their own theme song until about halfway through the season run.
That's just wrong.
The whole experience just solidified something in Tom's mind. When the next chance came for a TV show, which turned out to be the legendary Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour in '67, there was one thing he absolutely insisted on. Non-negotiable.
Creative control.
100%. He was not going through that again. The pain and the ulcer from the Angel sitcom directly led to him demanding and getting the power to shape their next show.
And boy, did he shape it. Once he had those reins, he drove that comedy hour straight into the thick of the culture wars.
Right into it. The comedy hour became this lightning rod almost immediately. Because Tom had secured creative control over the variety show format, they started tackling subjects that were just completely off limits for primetime TV in the late '60s.
And not just subtly, right? They were pretty direct.
Oh, yeah. It wasn't just like edgy jokes hidden away. They were dealing with religion, making not-so-veiled references to recreational drug use, talking about sex, and maybe most explosively, criticizing the Vietnam War.
Which inevitably led to huge fights with the network suits. The CBS Standards and Practices Department, the censors, that became legendary.
Relentless conflict. We're talking about entire sketches getting cut at the last minute, running gags about the censorship itself, massive tension behind the scenes between the brothers and the network brass.
And it all came to a head pretty dramatically.
It did. The whole war culminated in CBS just abruptly canceling the show, April 4th, 1969. Show's gone.
What was the official reason? They couldn't just say, you're too political, could they?
The network claimed it was a breach of contract. Said the brothers failed to deliver the show tapes early enough for review before broadcast. But, I mean, come on. Everyone knew it was political. The show was still hugely popular, great ratings.
And the brothers didn't just accept it.
No way. Tom, especially. They refused to go quietly. They filed this massive lawsuit against CBS for wrongful termination. And, significantly, they won. They were awarded a settlement of $776,300.
That's a huge sum for back then. And winning against the network like that.
It was a major statement. The lawsuit itself, the win, it really solidified Tom's image as this, uncompromising figure fighting for free speech against the establishment.
Yeah, I read one critic at the time saying something like, the most innovative show on TV was basically shut down by political pressure. And Tom himself said something interesting later about their dynamic.
What was that?
He admitted that he and Dick disagreed on basically everything, even politics. But he believed that very disagreement was, kind of ironically, essential to keeping their professional partnership going for so long. The tension was the act.
That internal conflict fueling the external comedy. It makes sense. And after the cancellation, Tom really leaned into the activist role even harder. He said he became a kind of poster boy for the First Amendment, freedom of speech.
But it took a toll on him personally.
Seems like it. He confessed that for about 3 years after the show got axed, he became deadly serious about everything. Said he felt like he'd lost his sense of humor entirely, just consumed by the political fight.
And his political stance was pretty clear. Definitely left-leaning.
Oh, absolutely. And very vocal. He publicly hammered the Democratic administration at the time, specifically President Lyndon B. Johnson, over Vietnam policy. He wasn't afraid to name names.
And this intensity, this willingness to call people out, it led to some pretty dramatic confrontations, didn't it? Like the famous incident with Bill Cosby.
Yeah, that's one of the most startling anecdotes in Tom's story. The sources explain that through the 1970s, Tom was really critical of entertainers he felt weren't using their platform to take political stance.
He thought they should be more engaged.
Exactly. And he apparently singled out Bill Cosby, who was huge at the time, for not being more outspoken on issues like civil rights. Tom saw Cosby's, more mainstream, less confrontational success as a kind of silence or even compliance.
And he said this publicly.
He mocked Cosby publicly for it. And it wasn't just a passing comment. This wasn't like a friendly debate.
Okay, so how bad did it get?
According to the accounts, Tom's comments really pissed him Cosby off. Deeply. The tension just festered for years between them. And it finally exploded physically at a party at the Playboy Mansion in October 1976.
Wait, physically, you mean?
Cosby punched Tom Smothers. in the head.
Get it. Bill Cosby punched Tom Smothers.
That's what the sources say. It's a shocking moment, right?
Mhm.
But it really underscores how deeply Tom felt about political engagement. He was willing to provoke, willing to call people out, even if it led to, well, getting decked by one of the biggest stars in the world. He was almost embracing that martyr role for his ideals.
Wow. Okay, that definitely adds a layer to the gentlefolk comedian image. But his activism wasn't just about arguments and getting punched. He also had this really unexpected connection to the rock and roll counterculture, right?
Absolutely. Which is fascinating given their folk roots. He had this deep connection to the protest music scene that was exploding then. He was one of the people introducing acts at the legendary Monterey Pop Festival in 1967.
Monterey Pop, that was huge. That gave him serious cred with the younger, more radical generation and the musicians.
For sure. And that credibility, that involvement naturally led to him befriending John Lennon.
The John Lennon.
Yep. And this isn't just like they met once. If you listen closely to the recording of Give Peace a Chance, you know, the one recorded live during John and Yoko's famous Bed-In for Peace in Montreal.
Yeah, iconic recording, June 1st, 1969.
Tom Smothers is on that recording. He's not just in the room. He's playing acoustic guitar right alongside John Lennon. And you can actually hear Lennon shout out his name in the lyrics.
No way. I have to listen to that again. So he's literally part of that massive global peace anthem recorded right at the heart of the movement.
Placed him smack dab in the middle of it.
Yeah.
A very visible participant in the international peace movement at a really critical time. It showed his commitment went way beyond just fighting CBS.
Okay, so you've got the political firebrand, the Lennon collaborator, but then there's also the Yo-Yo Man.
Chuckles. Yeah, the Yo-Yo Man. Completely different gear. He created this comedic character in the late 60s.
Yeah.
Totally non-speaking, just doing amazing yo-yo tricks with his deadpan expression.
I remember seeing that. It was bizarre but hilarious.
Right. He actually trademarked the name Yo-Yo Man and used the act a lot in their later tours. It was almost like this necessary escape hatch. Purely visual physical comedy. A break from all the intense political and intellectual battles he was fighting.
Makes sense. A moment of pure, nonsensical fun. Now, before we move fully over to Dick, we absolutely have to talk about the Emmy story, because that feels like the ultimate vindication for Tom.
Oh, the Emmy story is fantastic. It perfectly encapsulates his fight. So, 1969, the writing staff of the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour wins the Emmy Award for Outstanding Writing in a Comedic Series. Huge achievement.
They deserved it. The writing was groundbreaking.
Totally. But Tom refused to let them put his name on the official list of nominees submitted to the Academy.
Why would he do that? He was the star, the driving force.
He was afraid. He genuinely believed that CBS, who were obviously furious with him and had just canceled the show, would lean on the Television Academy to deny the writers the award if his contentious name was attached to it.
So he took his own name off to protect his writers.
Exactly. It was a protest move. A statement saying, look, my political dissent is so radioactive that I fear they'll punish everyone around me. He felt his contribution was being effectively erased because of his politics.
That's incredible self-sacrifice, in a way. But the story has a coda, right?
A beautiful one. Fast forward almost 40 years. 40 years. To 2008. The Television Academy finally decides to correct the historical record. They award Tom a special belated Emmy for his contribution to that very writing award back in '69.
Wow. After all that time.
And get this. The person who presented him with the honorary Emmy, none other than Steve Martin.
Steve Martin, why him?
Because Steve Martin was one of the young, unknown writers on that very staff back in 1969 who did get his name on the original Emmy.
No way. That's perfect. Full circle.
Absolutely. The establishment, the Academy, finally acknowledging the value of the work and the person they had effectively tried to sideline decades earlier. It's proof you couldn't erase his legacy, even by taking his name off a list.
That's a fantastic story. And outside of all that, he also had a vineyard.
Yeah, another long-term venture. In 1977, he established Remick Ridge Vineyards up in Sonoma County, California. Named after his mother's maiden name, remember? He kept that going for decades, only selling it in 2023, not long before he passed. Shows that persistence again, whether it was activism, comedy, or winemaking.
Okay, so that's Tom, the whirlwind. Activist, gymnast, Emmy protester, Lennon's guitarist, yo-yo man, winemaker. To really grasp the partnership, though, we need the other pole. We need Dick, the counterpoint.
The essential straight man, in life as much as on stage. Tom himself nailed it. He described Dick as, quote, more conservative politically and also as a pragmatist. He's very pragmatic and wants everything to line up and put in a box. That's the absolute anti-Tom.
And Dick's career outside the duo really reflects that, doesn't it? He seemed drawn to more structured, serious roles.
Very much so. While Tom was out battling the establishment, Dick was often playing establishment figures, or at least working comfortably within the system. Look at his serious acting roles. Way back in '66, he played Tweedledee in a TV movie of Alice Through the Looking Glass.
Okay, maybe not establishment, but definitely structured, following a script.
Right. But then look later. His most striking non-comedic role is probably in Martin Scorsese's Casino, the 1995 crime epic.
Casino. Who did Dick Smothers play in Casino?
He played Harrison Roberts, a dishonest Nevada state senator. It's noted as an uncharacteristically serious role for him. Think about that image. Dick Smothers, the guy singing folk songs next to his goofy brother, playing a corrupt politician in a gritty Scorsese gangster film.
That's jarring, and there was a real-life basis for that character.
Apparently, yeah. The sources mention his character, Senator Roberts, and particularly some of the dialogue and one key scene were partly based on the career of Harry Reid.
The Harry Reid, former Senate Majority Leader who used to chair the Nevada Gaming Commission.
That's the one. So Dick wasn't just playing a generic corrupt politician. He was embodying aspects of a very real figure within the power structure, the very kind of system his brother Tom was constantly railing against.
Wow. The contrast is incredible.
And it continued. He later played Judge Harold Baker in Steven Soderbergh's 2009 film The Informant, playing a judge.
Okay, yeah. A judge and a corrupt senator. It's almost like while Tom was trying to tear down the system, Dick was busy playing roles within it, understanding its mechanisms.
It's a stunning dissonance when you put their paths side by side. Tom's getting punched by Cosby over political inaction, playing guitar with Lennon for peace. Meanwhile, Dick is portraying figures of institutional power in major Hollywood films. He seemed comfortable with structure, with roles, with the system.
And that embrace of structure, of rules, of pragmatism, it really comes through in his other great passion, right? The one that seems totally out of left field for a Smothers brother.
Auto racing.
Auto racing. Not just watching, but participating. Seriously.
Oh yeah, this is the key differentiator for Dick's persona outside the act. He wasn't just a casual fan tinkering in his garage. He was highly active in amateur auto racing. Both road racing, which requires finesse and strategy, and drag racing, which is about pure power and reaction time.
And he even had his own team.
He did. He started the Smothers Brothers racing team, and they were serious contenders. They competed properly in 3 championship seasons between 1968 and 1971.
Right when the Comedy Hour was exploding and then imploding, he's dealing with network censorship fights and managing a race team.
Apparently so. And he specialized in endurance racing, driving high-performance cars at famous, grueling events like the 12 Hours of Sebring.
Endurance racing. That seems like the ultimate expression of that pragmatic, structured personality Tom described. It's not just about raw speed. It's about meticulous preparation, precision, reliability, following the rules, managing resources over a long haul.
Absolutely. Unlike, say, Tom's high-flying gymnastics, which has that element of improvisation and flair, endurance racing is about obsessive planning, engineering tolerances, pit stop strategies, lap times. Everything has to line up perfectly. It's the ultimate put-it-in-a-box sport.
And he took it to the highest level, didn't he? Le Mans.
He did. The 24 Hours of Le Mans in France, the absolute pinnacle of endurance racing. He competed once.
Okay, we need the details on that. Competing at Le Mans is serious business. What happened?
It was a major effort. 1972. He drove a beast of a car, a Chevrolet Corvette C3 for the John Greenwood racing team. He actually co-drove with John Greenwood himself, who was a legendary Corvette racer.
A Corvette at Le Mans. What class were they in?
The GTS Plus 5.0 class. Basically the big engine grand touring sports cars. Serious muscle. And the sources confirmed they managed to complete 53 laps of that incredibly demanding circuit.
53 laps. Okay, but in a 24-hour race, that usually means?
Yeah. They were ultimately classified as DNF, did not finish.
Ah, so something broke or a crash.
The records just say DNF, but with endurance racing, especially back then, mechanical failure on a heavily stressed car is the most likely culprit after that many laps.
Still, just getting there, preparing the car, qualifying, completing 53 laps at Le Mans, that requires incredible discipline, focus, and, well, pragmatism. It's the polar opposite of Tom's chaotic, improvised political activism.
Diametrically opposed worlds. Dick thrived in a world defined by engineering specs, lap charts, pit windows, fixed rules. Tom thrived by breaking rules and improvising.
Now, we should also touch on the fact that Dick faced his own set of public struggles later in life, but they seemed very different in nature from Tom's political battles.
That's true. While Tom's big fights were ideological, against institutions like CBS or the government, Dick's later challenges were much more personal, tangible.
Like what?
Well, there was a widely reported domestic violence incident in 2004 involving his then-wife, Denby. That led to their divorce being finalized in 2006. And there seemed to be financial fallout, too. Their condo in Florida was later foreclosed on and sold for what seemed like a low price, suggesting financial strain.
And that financial pressure became more public later.
It did. In February 2010, Dick had to file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. That's a major public declaration of financial difficulty. And then, adding to it, later that same year, in October 2010, he publicly announced he'd been diagnosed with Barrett's esophagus, which is a serious precancerous condition.
Right. So these are very real-world problems. Marriage breakdown, financial ruin, serious health issues. It's a stark contrast to Tom's fights over censorship or the Vietnam War.
Exactly. It highlights the different ways life seemed to challenge each of them. Tom battled abstract powers, censorship, war policy, political apathy. Dick grappled with the concrete, often harsh realities of personal finance, relationships, and health.
So we have this incredible picture, the activist artist versus the conservative racer. A partnership somehow forged and sustained by this constant real-life contradiction. How did their joint story finally wind down?
Well, they formally announced their retirement from touring back in May 2010. They seemed to think that was genuinely it.
But they came back, didn't they? Briefly.
I did. Couldn't quite stay away. They reunited briefly in 2019, specifically to mark the 50th anniversary of the Comedy Hour being canceled. A nice symbolic gesture, still defiant after all those years.
50 years. And they even planned another tour after that.
They tried. In December 2022, they announced they were actually going to go back on the road in 2023. But sadly, that tour had to be canceled before it began. Tom's health was declining.
Ah, right. And the final chapter for Tom came not long after that.
Tragically, yes. He had announced in July 2023 that he'd been diagnosed with stage 2 lung cancer. He passed away from the disease on December 26, 2023. He was 86. Died at his home in Santa Rosa, California.
A huge loss for comedy and really for American culture. And Dick, how's he doing now?
Dick Smothers is still with us. As of recent reports, he's been living in upstate New York. Seems focused on family and a more private life. He has 6 children from his various marriages. Dick Jr., Andrew, Stephen, Sarah, Susan, and Remick. And in September 2022, he remarried to Marie Navaroli-Krupp.
So looking back at this whole incredible saga, this 4-decade partnership, it really comes back to that insight Tom had, doesn't it? About the disagreement being the key.
It seems to be the core lesson. Tom himself said their ability to disagree on literally everything, politics, personality, philosophy, hobbies, you name it, was somehow crucial to making the act work for so long. They were these two opposing forces, the artist and the pragmatist.
By positive and negative poles.
Exactly. And maybe they needed that tension, that constant push and pull between them to create the energy, the spark that made the comedy resonate. Like you need tension on a guitar string to make music.
It really is a rare example, isn't it? A partnership that seemed to thrive because of conflict, not just in spite of it.
Absolutely. You had Tom, the dreamer, the idealist, chasing the First Amendment, hanging out with John Lennon, fighting the power. And you had Dick, the grounded one, seeking order on the racetrack, playing senators and judges in movies, dealing with the practicalities of life. Their comedy act was almost just the professional stage where they managed that genuine, deep-seated philosophical friction between them.
So just to recap the ground we've covered, we went from their contrasting athletic roots at San Jose State.
The gymnast versus the runner.
To that utterly bizarre apprentice angel sitcom nobody remembers.
A crucial failure in a way.
Then Tom's huge battles over censorship, the cancellation, the Emmy protests, the political activism, getting punched by Cosby, playing on Give Peace a Chance.
While Dick was carving out this serious acting career in films like Casino and becoming obsessed with the precision of endurance auto racing, even competing at Le Mans.
Right, the DNF at Le Mans. It's just this incredibly rich, almost unbelievable narrative of contradiction, all wrapped up in one comedy duo.
The duality is just staggering. It's a remarkable case study in how completely different temperaments, different worldviews, can actually combine to create something powerful and lasting, as long as they have some kind of structure, like their stage act, to contain and channel that fundamental disagreement.
Which brings us then to our final provocative thought for you, the listener, to mull over. We know their stage humor was built on this premise. Tom, the lovable fool, always pushing boundaries, getting things wrong, and Dick, the sensible straight man, constantly trying to impose order, logic, correction, mom always liked you best.
The classic setup.
But now, knowing what we know from all these sources, that Dick genuinely was a conservative pragmatist who liked things in neat boxes, and Tom genuinely was a boundary-pushing, liberal to radical activist who thrived on challenging norms, should we maybe rethink how we view their act?
You mean see it less as just a performed sibling rivalry?
Exactly. Should we see it less as a simple act and more as a highly successful professional management of a real, deep, philosophical conflict between two brothers? If their partnership truly was defined and maybe even fueled by this constant, genuine friction, what does their whole career trajectory tell us about the nature of compromise, or perhaps the lack of it, in creative partnerships that actually endure?